Ellos van a hacer su presentación, parte en inglés y parte en español. Perdónanos si la interpretación no está perfecta hoy, pero vamos a intentar hacerlo para que todos tengan la información en los dos idiomas, ¿ok? Nosotros estamos haciendo un live stream en Facebook, así que si pasan enfrente van a estar en video. This is going to be on Facebook live stream, so if you are coming up front, just be aware that you might actually end up being on video, but I do think it'll be just as attorneys for today. Entonces, quería decir que nosotros estamos aquí en una causa buena. Nosotros queremos informar a todo el mundo de qué es la expectativa, de qué es lo que va a pasar con el nuevo presidente Trump y también durante el tiempo en que estamos esperando que él toma su lugar. We're here today to talk about what are our expectations for what will happen when President Trump becomes president on January 20th, 2017, and also in the interim as well. I'm going to talk about DACA and some of the 4 or 5 different ways that we think DACA may continue or possibly end. Bradley is going to walk us through what the American Immigration Lawyers Association has been saying post-election. David and Sarah are going to talk to you also about immigration, but more specifically about how to prepare, especially when we're talking about people who have a criminal history or who may find themselves forced to work with police or another type of investigative agency. We want people to be as prepared as possible. The goal today is to not panic, but to be the most prepared we can in this new and surprising era. Yo voy a hablar sobre acción diferida de estudiantes, el programa de los Dreamers, y como hay unos 4 o 5 maneras en que pensamos que este programa va a continuar o quizás terminar. Bradley va a hablar sobre la Asociación de Abogados de Migración de los Estados Unidos. Ellos han hecho una presentación, una telefónica hace unos días sobre su opinión de lo que va a pasar. Y entonces él tomó muy buenas notas y él quiere compartir esa información con nosotros, con ustedes de nuestra Asociación Nacional. Sarah Brinson y David Creech van a hablar sobre cómo hacer la preparación para lo que va a pasar en el futuro, especialmente para gente que o tiene una historia criminal o quizás tienen un caso criminal pendiente o van a ver esto en un futuro, porque la preparación es lo más importante. No queremos tener un pánico, queremos estar preparados. Okay? So, vamos a empezar entonces con Bradley, y él va a empezar en inglés y yo voy a ser la intérprete. Okay? Yeah.
All right. Hi, my name is Bradley Setzer. I'm Helen Tirakich's new associate at her law firm. I sat in on an hour-long discussion that Ayla had recently, an emergency meeting of sorts to talk about what to expect with the Trump presidency.
Bradley Setzer es un abogado y él trabaja para nuestro bufete. Él estaba escuchando la conferencia nacional sobre los abogados de migración de todos los Estados Unidos. Tomó muy buenas notas y va a hacer un resumen de lo que están hablando.
One of the first things they talked about was what the demographic on Capitol Hill will look like in the next at least 2 years until the next election cycle comes around. In the Senate, there's probably going to be a 47 or 48 Democratic minority with around 51 or 52 Republican senators. What that means is that
So lo que están diciendo primero es cómo va a haber Congreso durante este tiempo, porque no fue solamente una elección de presidente, también fue una elección de los congresistas y ahora las 2 cámaras son republicanos, pero no por tanta gente. What is the percentage again?
It's about 48 Democrats and about 52 Republicans.
Okay, 48 demócratas y 52 republicanos, so estamos muy cerca en los números.
In order to make any changes to what has been codified in regulation, so a lot of immigration law is written into regulations, the statute books. A lot of that stuff cannot be changed without the Senate giving its okay.
Entonces, la mayoría de la ley está escrito en blanco y negro, ¿no es cierto? Y no se puede cambiar así nomás. Ellos tienen que hacer un procedimiento y tienen que votar para cambiar la ley.
What exists is called the filibuster, which is a technical thing that happens in the Senate to where if there's the minority, they can say, we don't want this thing to pass, and they could say they're going to filibuster it, and they would need 60 votes to overcome that. So there are a lot of regulations, specifically with immigration law, that the Democratic minority could actually stop from ever going to President Trump's desk and being signed into law.
Aunque hay una minoría en el Senado de demócratas, es posible que entonces que ellos hacen lo que se llama un filibuster. Ellos como abogados hablan y hablan y hablan y hablan para que no puedan hacer un voto, ¿no? Y entonces con esto ellos pueden demorar o parar que una nueva ley llega al escritorio del presidente Trump para que él podría firmarlo como una ley. Así que, aunque no es la mayoría de la gente en el Congreso ahorita, para enero, que va a ser demócrata, todavía ellos tienen derecho a parar o demorar que una ley va a ser votado y entonces que el presidente Trump tiene un derecho a firmar sí o no que sea ley.
Okay, so that's the good news.
Eso es buenas noticias entonces para nosotros.
But there's bad news with that, because with immigration law, a lot of it, the executive branch that the president runs has the authority to change without Congress. One of those things is DACA.
Y entonces también hay malas noticias, que aunque los congresistas tienen que votar sobre las leyes, el presidente tiene ciertos derechos sobre, por ejemplo, acción ejecutiva, incluso DACA, y entonces él tiene derecho a cancelar eso si él quisiera cancelar el programa.
So anything that President Obama did with executive authority without Congress, Trump can come in and change or get rid of it entirely.
Entonces, cuando el presidente es nuestro amigo, como el presidente Obama ha hecho la acción ejecutiva, incluso acción referida para los estudiantes, todo lo bueno que él ha hecho como presidente de su propio poder como presidente, el nuevo presidente Trump también va a tener el poder cancelar.
So someone will talk about DACA in a bit. So the next thing we talked about, after talking about the demographics in Congress now, is what is going to be a priority. And there's at least a decent chance that immigration policy is not going to be a super high priority from day one for President Trump.
Para nosotros quizás la prioridad es inmigración, pero no necesariamente es una prioridad para los congresistas y el presidente. Ellos tienen otros asuntos también como taxas, Obamacare y otras leyes que ellos pueden quizás intentar cambiar, que va a entonces cambiar el enfoque afuera del rango de inmigración.
So it may be a while after President Trump gets sworn in that we find out exactly what he's going to do with immigration law. We will be able to get some idea based on who he appoints to his cabinet positions in Congress, so that is something to pay attention to. If he decides to appoint some folks who are very hardline restrictionists on immigration, then we'll have something to worry about, really, because we'll know these are the people who are going to form the policy that President Trump wants to follow.
Y puede tomar entonces un rato hasta que nosotros vemos algunos cambios. No sé, no estoy interpretando exactamente, pero lo que Bradley quiere decir es que puede ser que entonces están enfocando en diferentes leyes y entonces no están enfocando tanto en inmigración, o cuando nosotros estamos mirando a las noticias es muy importante prestar atención a cuáles son las personas que ellos ponen en cargo de los asuntos de inmigración, porque si son gente con mucha experiencia en inmigración, en contra de inmigración, entonces quizás los cambios van a ser más con la expectativa de cómo va a funcionar esa gente en su trabajo y no solamente lo que ha dicho el presidente Trump.
All right. What Ayla plans to do once President Trump takes office, if he does move against the immigration laws or does do something to many of the immigrants that live in the United States and they're undocumented, Ayla has litigation at its disposal. We fully expect any Trump administration to take any legal action they can against the immigrant community, but the immigrant community also has litigation that it can use if President Trump does anything that is unconstitutional, if they do any unconstitutional searches or seizures or anything like that, then we can fight it in the courts, and some of the policies that he may want to implement, we may be able to tie up in litigation for years to come, to where we don't have to feel the worst effect of those immediately.
Si ellos hacen cambios que son en contra de los inmigrantes, especialmente cambios que nosotros pensamos son contra de la Constitución de los Estados Unidos, entonces la Asociación de Abogados de Migración de los Estados Unidos va a hacer un caso contra ellos. Y anteriormente, cuando nosotros vemos algo que no es justo, que es contra la justicia, entonces vamos a hacer nuestro caso. Y como ustedes han visto, esto puede tomar años hasta que una corte toma una decisión. Entonces, mientras hay una pelea, un debate y todo eso, es posible que ya pasen los meses y entonces los años, ojalá, hasta que un cambio negativo toma lugar. Entonces, la Asociación de Abogados de Migración es una de las agencias que está mirando qué es lo que va a pasar con la nueva administración. También quería mencionar que el presidente Trump no puede solamente como revocar las leyes, hay un proceso legal que tiene que tomar para hacer esto.
Really, it's just going to take time. We don't know exactly what Trump is going to do because Trump has said a lot of things, some of them contradictory, and he has already, since winning the nomination for president, he's already stepped back with some of that stuff. So with immigration, that is what brings us all here today. We are not going to know, probably until the first 100 days are through, exactly what a Trump presidency is going to mean for immigration.
Nosotros no sabemos qué va a pasar, nosotros no tenemos una bala de cristal. Aunque hoy nosotros vamos a hablar sobre nuestros pensamientos de lo que va a pasar, esto no significa que eso va a ser la realidad. Incluso puede ser hasta que cumplan los primeros 100 días de la nueva administración que vamos a tener una mejoría. Brad estaba comentando que el presidente Trump ha dicho algunas cosas y entonces al día siguiente dice completamente al revés. Y él es una persona que entonces para nosotros es algo muy nuevo porque normalmente un político dice una cosa y quiere hacer lo que ha dicho. En esta nueva administración puede ser sí, puede ser no y simplemente no sabemos. Vamos a prepararnos para lo peor, pero esperar para lo mejor. En su paquete de información nosotros preparamos un resumen que es un poco más detallado. Esto dice ELA Election Discussion y esta información está solamente en inglés. Todavía no tenemos una versión en español, pero también en su paquete hay más información que está en español que tiene alguna de esta misma información, okay? So in your packet, the ELA election discussion notes I think are really helpful. When I read these ELA discussion notes, I felt much more comforted in knowing and just reminding myself that the government's not just going to fall apart on January 20th. I mean, there's going to be some shake-up across the nation when the Trump presidency comes into power. But again, you know, most of the things that we fear cannot happen overnight or cannot happen without a vote or cannot happen without us putting up a fight through litigation. I just want everybody to remember that we're all still good people in this country and that truly the majority of people in this country are going to be working towards protecting the rights of immigrants and our families. So with that said, I do want to talk about presidential power and what's going to happen with DACA because that is the one thing that the presidency really has a lot of control over. Aunque nosotros estamos pensando que, por supuesto, muchas cosas requieren una ley nueva, me gustaría hablar sobre acción diferida, lo que nosotros llamamos DACA. Y hay un muy buen artículo que fue escrito por Lily Axelrod, this is Successor. There's this wonderful article written by Lily Axelrod. She's a friend of mine and an immigration attorney. And she, I think, really broke down the issues very, very well. It's not in the big packet. It's just a 3-page double-sided article that you've got. And I'd love for everybody to read this and to share this with friends and family because I think it's really good information. Entonces, el presidente Trump ha prometido que él va, el primer día de su administración, cancelar acción diferida de estudiantes. Eso fue una de las promesas que no sabemos si es la verdad o si es algo que va a cambiar con tiempo. Y él tiene más de una opción. Cuando él dice el primer día lo vamos a cambiar, lo vamos a terminar, eso no significa necesariamente que lo va a terminar, y los permisos de trabajo y la acción diferida, de hecho, ya no existe el primer día de su administración. So just because he's saying that he's going to end DACA on his first day, that doesn't mean it's actually going to end the way that we think it will. It doesn't necessarily mean that those work permits and deferred action are going to actually end on day one of his administration. Una opción que Trump tiene es que él podría declarar que cual persona que tiene DACA ya su permiso no es válido y que sus permisos de empleo también están revocados. Técnicamente, él sí tiene el poder para hacerlo, pero no sabemos cómo lo va a hacer la implementación. Incluso uno de los abogados en este paquete de información está diciendo que por técnico él tiene que hacer un anuncio y darnos 30 días para responder que él tiene el intento de revocar un permiso y de ahí tienen que hacer una decisión escrita a todo el mundo. Así que quizás la acción deferida él puede anunciar el mismo día de la administración que está cancelado, pero hablando de los permisos de trabajo, no es necesario, no necesariamente vamos a ver que están revocados el mismo día. Quizás hay un proceso que tienen que seguir. Trump could also phase out DACA. He could just do a phase out. What would that mean? He could order immigration to stop issuing DACA approvals. He could order immigration to stop approving those 2-year work permits for DACA. And he could do that as early as his first day in office. If this happens, the people who currently have DACA could still basically continue to remain in the United States and work lawfully until the expiration date of DACA, until the expiration date of their actual work permits. Okay, so this would be sort of a slower phase out where he's not saying whatever you have in your hand today is worthless. He's saying, I'm just not going to let you guys renew this and don't bother applying if you don't already have DACA. Una segunda opción que Trump puede hacer es hacerlo como en unos pasos. Él puede ordenar o pedir al Servicio de Inmigración que ya no acepta nuevas solicitudes de acción diferida. Puede decir que, bueno, no vamos a cancelar o revocar sus permisos de trabajo, pero simplemente no le vamos a dejar renovar sus permisos de trabajo. Nosotros no le vamos a dar renovar su acción diferida, pero pueden seguir aquí con presencia legal y con su permiso de trabajo trabajando legalmente hasta que se vence los documentos. Okay. Another way that Trump could do this is he could allow people to who have DACA currently renew their permits and renew their deferred action, but not let any new people apply. This would be what we would call like a grandfathering clause, where if you've already in the program and we've already cleared you and we know you're not a criminal, we're going to go ahead and let you renew stuff, but we're not going to let new people who just haven't registered with DACA before get into the program. And that would be a way to sort of keep a group of people who are already registered within the program here and stable in the United States, but just not expand the program anymore. Es posible que él va a dar la opción que la gente sigue renovando su acción deferida y sus permisos si ya están registrados, pero simplemente no dar a gente que ya no está registrado intentar registrarse. Y eso sería para nosotros algo mejor porque por supuesto entonces la gente que ya sabemos no tienen un récord criminal, ya tienen acción deferida de estudiantes, ya tienen su buen permiso, han demostrado que son parte del programa, que ellos siguen igual, pero simplemente no están invitando a otra gente a registrarse en un nuevo programa. El efecto en eso sería bien triste porque también tenemos nosotros muchas familias que tienen gente que tienen niños con 14 años que iban a registrar en el año que viene, ya estaban preparando para esto y ya no podrían hacerlo, pero por lo menos para la gente que todavía tiene DACA van a renovarlo. So one option is that he allows current DACA beneficiaries to renew, but in new applications that would be sad for the folks who are 14 now who are planning on applying when they're 15, but it would certainly be better than if he just revokes it for everyone. And then this is my most interesting option, and this is the one where I hope he will choose to go, knowing that we have hundreds of thousands of people with DACA who are good, hardworking, community-supported individuals. Trump could keep DACA sort of as a bargaining chip. If he really wants to prioritize change within the immigration system and focus on deporting criminal aliens and building the wall or internal enforcement and securing our borders, then he's going to need some cooperation from the moderate Republicans, and he's going to need some cooperation from the Democrats that Bradley was talking about. If he and his advisors are really thinking strategically, they may decide not to make any new changes to the DACA program and just kind of keep it as a pressure point in the negotiation. And this is straight from Lily Axelrod's article, and I think she just wrote it so well. So if this happens, immigration could continue to accept new DACA applications and renewals, and then if Congress manages to pass some type of common sense immigration reform, hopefully it would keep a path to immigration for those people with DACA. Why do I think this is even plausible? You know, because I've been crying since November 9th at 3 o'clock in the morning, like most of you here, like sobbing, ugly crying, about how, you know, Trump's just going to ruin everything and all of these programs for immigration are going to be destroyed. But the reason I think that this might actually be possible is that in the 79-point article about how a president could squeeze the life out of immigration in this country, written by the Evil Center for Immigration Studies, they actually suggested letting the DACA litigation continue in Texas to broaden presidential power. So in some way, if you're agreeing that we can have DACA and you're letting it go through the litigation process, you get a bargaining chip towards making your own other secure immigration reforms and building the wall. And you also sort of strengthen presidential power by not just saying this is an illegal thing, that Obama went too far, that he's making illegal executive actions. So if we have people like Chris, I think he pronounces it Kobach, I think it's actually Chris Kobach, and other people who are very, very anti-immigrant saying that maybe sticking around with DACA for a while it gets litigated in the Texas courts and maybe back up to the Supreme Court, and while we're working on trying to get some new enforcement measures, even if those people are on the side of it, it's possible that as well we might be able to keep DACA for a while. So I don't know if President Trump is going to destroy DACA and your work permits with a tweet, or if this is going to continue through some litigation and reform process, or if people are going to get grandfathered in. But I want you all to know that these are the versions of what may happen, and we have to keep in mind that all hope is not lost, and we just have to prepare ourselves for the worst and hope for the best and do what we can to try to come up with a plan B for anybody who might be losing DACA. Maybe they have some other type of immigration benefit they can qualify for. Una de las razones que en esta como número 4 opción de que estamos hablando, yo pienso que es posible, sorry, mi español no es muy bueno para esto. Okay, Trump puede mantener el programa de DACA como algo que puede usar en sus negociaciones. Si los congresistas y presidente Trump quieren hacer la prioridad de hacer una pared en la frontera, o quieren hacer una prioridad de hacer expulsión a gente con un récord criminal, entonces quizás manteniendo el programa de acción diferida de estudiantes va a ser algo que ellos pueden usar para convencer a los republicanos que no son tan estrictos en su manera de pensar, y también para los demócratas. Entonces, si ellos están pensando de la estrategia, ellos pueden tomar la decisión no hacer un cambio de inmediato, no revocar a DACA y ni los permisos, hasta que las cortes en Texas también toman una decisión sobre la expansión de acción diferida de estudiantes, hasta que ellos toman más decisiones sobre el poder presidencial. La razón que yo pienso que esto es posible es porque en un trabajo por el Centro de los Estudios de Migración, que es una organización muy en contra de migración, ellos hicieron una lista de 79 cosas que un presidente puede hacer para echar inmigrantes, cancelar leyes que les ayudan y básicamente hacer la vida muy mal para ellos. Y en esa lista de 79 cosas, ellos dijeron, bueno, pero quizás siguiendo con acción diferida va a ser algo bueno para nosotros, porque nosotros tenemos que hacer negociaciones en la política, y porque también esto puede hacer el presidente más fuerte para diferentes acciones ejecutivas que él quiere hacer. Así que de un lado de como que sería yo soy muy liberal, yo soy a la izquierda, yo quiero la reforma migratoria, yo quiero que nosotros damos papeles a todo el mundo si es posible, pero también la gente que está muy en contra de migración, completamente al derecho, Nosotros tenemos algo en común, que es que quizás manteniendo el programa de acción diferida va a ser algo bueno para la política durante este tiempo. Entonces, para gente que tiene acción diferida de estudiantes, ellos pueden aplicar a renovar su acción diferida de estudiantes, y mi recomendación es que la gente que no tiene un historial criminal, que de verdad califiquen para renovar su acción diferida de estudiantes, que ellos sigan mandando las renovaciones. My recommendation is you should continue to renew DACA unless and until the program is canceled. Don't give up your DACA before anybody has even said that this program is going to go away. Especially because you're already in the immigration system. They have your address, your photograph, your fingerprints, and all of those things. It makes more sense to try to renew DACA, even though there's a possibility you might lose your money if they decide not to renew it. Down the road, there's also a good enough chance that it might just get phased out, or even that we'll keep the program. Mi recomendación entonces para gente que puede renovar su acción diferida es que sigan haciéndolo hasta que o si ellos cancelan el programa. Si aplica para renovación y entonces cancelan el programa, van a perder el dinero que han invertido, pero es mejor comparado a no hacer nada y simplemente perder su acción diferida sin que alguien le ha forzado a perderlo. Y entonces en este artículo nosotros tenemos muchas otras muy buena información sobre gente que tiene DACA, si están pensando en hacer un viaje afuera del país, si están pensando en hacer una residencia permanente, y me encantaría que la gente lea esta información en paquete porque les va a ayudar mucho y no vamos a tener tiempo para revisarlo todo hoy. Me gustaría hacer una pausa, especialmente de mi voz, y darle al abogado Sarah Brinson una oportunidad. Primero, ustedes como localmente quizás no conocen a ella, y entonces me gustaría que ella hace una mejor introducción de qué es lo que ella hace, dónde trabaja, y entonces hablar sobre su opinión, cómo podemos estar muy bien preparados y no en pánico. So Sarah Brinson's going to talk next. I definitely need some voice rest. And she's going to give a better introduction of where she works and what she does, because what she does is a little different than what I do. And then she's going to give some of her opinions about how we can prepare and not panic in this situation. And we're very lucky to have her here today. She traveled a long way to be here.
Thanks, Helen. Yes, I'm Sarah Brinson. I'm an attorney. I have my office in Clinton, North Carolina, in Sampson County, around Kenansville, Duplin County. I work out in the boonies, basically. So any family, friends that aren't in these big cities, that's where I try to come in and help out. So I'm just going to go through a few practical points, kind of explain what I do, where I take cases. I know David will speak about similar things, and I also will do it in Spanish and English. So bear with me. My assistant Ureli's over there. She's my right-hand helper, paralegal, and so we're open to going anywhere there's a need. Entonces, buenas tardes, soy Sara la abogada de inmigración y también tomo casos de cualquier caso criminal y de tráfico. Yo quiero avisar algunas cosas sobre conoce sus derechos. Entonces, si algo pasa, si alguien tiene un caso pendiente criminal de manejando borracho, DUI, cualquier asalto, agresión, delito menor, felonía, es muy importante para saber sus derechos. Y planear, para hacer un plan. Entonces, pero también primero, yo quiero revisar dónde estoy, qué tipo de casos que yo tomo, y también revisar un poco sobre sus derechos. También mi asistente Ireli está aquí hoy para ayudarnos, y somos un equipo. Tenemos una oficina en Clinton, que es en el condado de Sampson, cerca de Duplin County. Yo tomo casos de inmigración de cualquier parte, pero también yo tomo casos criminales en cualquier lugar cerca. Entonces, antes yo tenía casos en el condado de Wayne, condado de Lenoir, condado de Duplin, Onslow, Sampson. Entonces, cualquier lugar que no hay un abogado que pueda hablar español y también que pueda explicar las consecuencias migratorias, yo estoy aquí, porque En las últimas 2 semanas también yo he visto muchos casos de ICE en el condado de Sampson, Duplin, en la área de probation. Un joven que recibió una sentencia de probation después de un delito menor está en riesgo. Entonces ellos llegaron, recogerlo, y él ahora está en detención de inmigración. Y él tenía DACA. No quiero causar pánico, pero también yo quiero explicar que es muy, muy importante. Cualquier caso en el corte criminal que entiende qué significa cualquier consecuencia migratoria y para evitar cualquier resultado mal, okay? So I was just explaining that I do a lot of criminal work. I do it all in these areas of rural Eastern Carolina counties. I've gone to Wayne, Lenoir, Duplin, and Sampson, but of course I focus more in the Sampson, Duplin County, Onslow areas. And I'm a strong voice for knowing what immigration consequences come from a criminal conviction. There's so many people that I've heard, and it's sad, nobody told them what would happen. This young kid who had DACA got a misdemeanor conviction. He was on probation, doing everything good, and before he knew it, ICE was there to detain him. And it's very sad because families and him as a 19-year-old boy doesn't know what to do. So I just kind of want to review some practical things about what to gather and to know, what could come. All right. Entonces, por ejemplo, hace años tuvimos un como programa de Show Me Your Papers, muestra sus papeles, donde policía o cualquier oficial local puede como preguntar a alguien sobre su estatus migratoria. Y hace años hablamos mucho sobre ese como programa de conozca sus derechos y un plan de como documentos para juntar. También en esa información, ese paquete, hay listas de como consejos y documentos importantes para tener. Por ejemplo, yo tengo un montón de ejemplos, pero en casos donde alguien ya tiene un caso pendiente en el corte o tiene una convicción, y puede ser por un delito menor o algo más serio, es muy importante para entender, siempre hay un riesgo que inmigración puede venir, puede como recoger a alguien en una cita de probation, probatoria supervisada. También a veces alguien puede recibir días en el cárcel abajo de probation, donde alguien está haciendo sus días en el fin de semana, y al final inmigración puede venir en un domingo. También cualquier retén, un checkpoint, manejando nomás para chequear licencias, y también las redadas. Yo trabajo en un área con muchas granjas, con muchos como farms de todo. Entonces yo sé que hay un montón de trabajadores sin papeles. No queremos causar pánico, pero si hay manera para evitar cualquier tipo de cargo criminal, es mejor. Siempre yo digo, si eres un hombre latino, hispano, no maneja después de tomando. No vale la pena, no es algo muy, no es bueno para hacerlo. Y también, no más para manejar sin licencia. Ahora, todavía hay riesgo que cualquier policía puede chequear el sistema. Si tenía una convicción antes, si tiene una historia con inmigración, siempre hay riesgo de una detención. En ese como booking, en el cárcel, ellos pueden chequear todo, mandar sus huellas de inmigración, hay un hold, hay una detención de inmigración. Entonces, I'll break a little bit talking English, but I'm just kind of reviewing these examples of if you have a pending criminal charge, whether it be a misdemeanor or whatever criminal court, it is very important to know what could happen, what the consequences could be, and also to avoid them. I always say this, but even more now, around the holidays and with new Trump administration, do not take the risk. If you are unfortunately a Hispanic male and you're driving after drinking, I take these cases all the time and I see what happens, and I always inform clients that they understand that they will have a risk of being picked up by ICE, whether it be a probation visit, at completing jail days, and if there's a way to avoid any type of those sentences where you're monitored. And so also to know how to prepare if you were to be picked up, and I'll kind of speak of that in English too, or in Spanish as well to go throughout there. But I have a lot of clients in Sampson County and Duplin County. And just in the last couple of weeks, even before the election, 2 young men were picked up. And unfortunately, they did not even have an idea that could happen. That is a disservice to the community. And so when I take criminal cases, I really push the fact that they are understanding before they take a plea, before they go to trial or make any final decision, what could happen. Do not want to be causing panic, but at the same time, I'm pretty clear and direct with my clients. And so I'm just going to review some things that anyone can do that you think they could be at risk. We're not saying everyone's going to be deported once Trump becomes president. But like we did years ago, even when I was in law school, we did Know Your Rights presentations where we just told people what they can do, what to expect, stay strong, get your documents together. I have Know Your Rights cards in my office at all points. If you don't want to speak to a policeman or anybody, you have something to show in English and Spanish that I want to call my attorney, and I've had it done before too. So, yo quiero revisar muy rápido algunas cosas, consejos que podemos hacer para como ser preparados para cualquier tipo de detención de migración, detención de cualquier policía local. Primero, si alguien antes tenía un tipo de deportación, historia con migración, para saber su número de tienes copias de documentos migratorios. También, si alguien no sabe si tiene un récord criminal o no, es el momento para chequearlo, ¿ok? Hay manera para chequear sus huellas nacional, para mandar, para saber, sí, todavía hay una convicción en el estado de Ohio sobre un DWI que yo recibí en el año 2002, porque eso es algo muy importante también. Mucha gente piensa, pero yo terminé todo de mi probation, todas las condiciones de corte, entonces todo está limpia, mi récord. No, así no es, por ejemplo, una convicción de manejando abajo de influencia. Un DWI siempre está en un récord de alguien, y es muy importante para saber, porque ojalá que no, pero si Trump quiere empezar un tipo de plan de como procesar a alguien con un récord criminal, con un DWI, es muy bien, es mejor para saber si existe ese riesgo o no. Siempre yo digo, podemos chequear huellas nacional, es un proceso que yo hago muchas veces en mi oficina local en Clinton. También, si alguien no sabe si existe un orden de deportación de antes, cualquier historia con migración, también hay manera para chequearlo con un FOIA. Es un tipo de petición que puede pedir su récord de inmigración, y es su derecho para obtenerlo. Y también, por ejemplo, en cualquier redada, cualquier retén, si alguien tiene un caso pendiente o ya hecho, pero con probation, con días en cárcel, siempre es un riesgo que inmigración puede venir. Por favor, juntar todos los documentos. Si tiene pasaporte vencida, es momento para renovarlo. Matrícula también. También cualquier documento de acta de nacimiento de sus hijos, acta de matrimonio. También pruebas de sus taxes. Si siempre hago sus impuestos, taxes, hay copias para mostrar su tiempo aquí. También, si alguien tiene una convicción criminal en el pasado, pero hizo todo bien, por ejemplo, clases de alcohol, grabación de alcohol, cualquier servicio en la comunidad, es bueno para juntar, para mostrar que un tipo de comportamiento cambiado, más o menos. Entonces, como Helen ya dijo, no sabemos todo. Muchas partes de inmigración van a seguir normal. por ejemplo, cualquier petición que alguien tiene, hay regulaciones que ellos no pueden cambiar muy rápido. Claro, yo sé que DACA es una preocupación para mucha gente, también yo tengo muchos clientes con DACA, pero también en mi oficina estamos renovando. Entonces, también yo tomo casos de inmigración de familia, cualquier petición de familia, visa U. También podemos pensar en cualquier beneficio que existe. Si alguien una vez ha sido una víctima de un crimen violento aquí en Estados Unidos, pueden aplicar o es posible que puede ser elegible para visa U. Y yo sé que mucha gente nomás quiere algo que puede ser un tipo de alivio, pero tampoco, mucho ojo, cuidado con cualquier estafador, notarios públicos, alguien que no es un abogado de inmigración, porque también es muy triste, pero mucha gente quiere aprovechar de la gente, ¿ok? Entonces alguien puede decir que, todavía hay ese programa de acción de Frida y yo voy a cobrar ese dinero y puede hacer algo antes de Trump. Por favor, nomás habla con un abogado de inmigración. Si tiene un abogado criminal, pero ese abogado no sabe, no entiende las leyes de inmigración, es tu derecho y responsabilidad de ese abogado para guiar un cliente para hablar con un abogado de inmigración. Okay?
And then let me just interrupt for just a second here. So Sarah has been talking about how if you have DACA and you want to figure out what your plan B is it a victim's visa, a U visa, is there some other type of a petition that can be done? Or if you just want to prepare yourself for the possibility that maybe it's just going to be your unlucky day and you get pulled over in a checkpoint and they find an old DWI on the record or something and they want to make an arrest. Well, how do you prepare now? How do you prepare to go to a consultation with an attorney? What documents should you have at home, even if you don't have the money right now to go to an attorney, but you want to get ready for the future? In your packets today, there's a couple of things. One of these documents is from the ILRC, which is the Immigrant Legal Resource Center. It's really nice. This is actually a client intake form. Every attorney who you go to should have their own intake sheet or form that you fill out before you talk to them. But I love this one. And you can even fill it out before you go to the attorney's office and talk to them about your case and have your own and fill out their intake sheet. And why is that? Because this has some questions and answers on here that I think that any attorney should be looking at when they're considering your case. And it's several pages long, so I think that everybody should have this filled out. Also, what if you're one of your cousins is one of those people who doesn't know that they could get just arrested by a police officer for the misdemeanor crime of driving without a license? And maybe we need to talk to those people and say, hey, cousin, look, I don't know your whole history, but you need to fill this out and have this kept in a safe place, so that if you are picked up, we know we can go to Sarah Brinson or David Creech and see if they can't help us with the criminal aspect of the defense, and also make sure that we have all the right information to give them. And even attached to this intake sheet are some examples of the other Plan Bs that we can work on, like maybe somebody qualifies for a human trafficking visa or a U visa on here. Well, what is that? This little intake sheet has on the back some reminders for attorneys to go through as they're doing your consultation. And then on the last page of the packet is what, I actually have this on my website, and it's a compilation of different types of checklists. But it talks about having proof of identity, like a passport, a birth certificate, your matricula or cedula, other types of identification. Proof of physical presence, immigration documents if people have had an immigration history before, school documents if they've gone to school. All the kinds of things that you could prepare to go to a consultation are the kinds of things that you should have in a nice, organized place in your home. And I can't tell you how happy it makes me when people come to see me at my office and they've got like this nice little accordion file, and it's like the marriage and the divorce and the birth certificate and their passports and their kids' achievement certificates and a police report from a previous robbery where they were a victim and cooperated, and they've got all this wonderful information organized. And I'm usually just like, please can I just have that whole file? I just want to look at it all. It gives me just this great perspective on your whole history. I'm like, just hand it to me. And Sarah and Dave and Bradley are like that too. They want to see what you have. And if you haven't gone around and gotten your passport or an old, divorce decree to show that you were legally divorced before you got married to your, current spouse or something, it makes it a lot harder on all of us to get anything ready to file. And I'll give you an example. An American sponsoring an immigrant, those types of cases often take, a few months to prepare and file. But if somebody really had all of the documents on this checklist, I could in theory get it done over the weekend, so in an emergency. So it's that kind of thing where being prepared, just having your documents, even though there might not be something you're going to go use them for right now, can be absolutely critical. And the Know Your Rights presentations that Sarah does, whether she's doing a bond in an immigration court or in front of a criminal judge, these items are really important things that you'd want to have with you.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, and that is true. And I'm going to wrap up here so David can talk, and I just ramble most of the times, but I just kind of want to connect to people in a practical way. And I do believe we're going to have some time afterwards, and so if somebody has specific questions or concerns, we'll have some time to talk to you guys. Entonces, nomás, yo puedo hablar todo el día sobre esas cosas, pero también el abogado David quiere hablar sobre con ustedes, y después vamos a tener tiempo para hablar con cada uno si tiene duda, preguntas sobre algo específico, un caso criminal específico, un caso de migración, y que también Helen estaba diciendo que un montón de información aquí. Hay algunas cosas nomás en inglés, pero es la información aquí para juntar cualquier documento. En un caso criminal local, también un caso de deportación en el Corte de Inmigración, es muy importante para tener todo juntado más o menos. Cualquier documento importante, si alguien puede tener, es algo que podemos actuar más rápido. Entonces, yo voy a estar aquí todo el tiempo, entonces después si alguien tiene preguntas, yo voy a estar aquí. Entonces, ahora David.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is David Creech. Do both immigration law and also criminal defense in New Hanover and Pender and Brunswick County. I think I would start out by saying this has been a very difficult time for a lot of people. I understand, a lot of people felt extreme sadness and concern and desperation, but I think it's not the time to run away or to hide or to live in fear. I think it's the time to prepare and to be strong and to remember that, everybody has rights. We're all people of the world, and there's a lot of people that believe in you and believe in our immigrant population and all of us that make America so unique. It's our diversity which really makes us thrive and makes us so special as a nation. So I think it's important to understand that, in the context of such a ugly election with lots of hateful things that have been said, I promise you, it may not seem like it now, but there are still a lot of good people in the United States that believe in the ideals that are most important for America. Yo soy abogado David Creech, soy abogado de migración y defensa criminal aquí en Wilmington, North Carolina. Yo quisiera hablar un poco de qué debe hacer si usted tiene la DACA o si no tiene la DACA, qué debe hacer si tiene un caso criminal pendiente. I'd like to talk just quickly on if you're someone who does have DACA and you currently have criminal charges pending against you, or if you don't have DACA or any other legal status and you have criminal charges pending against you right now, what you should do. So, si tienen cargos criminales pendientes en este momento, muy importante que trata de terminar todo antes de enero. Quizás tiene un cargo de manejar borracho o un cargo de tráfico o algo más serio que está pendiente. De vez en cuando es posible terminar el caso antes que un tiempo normal. Sometimes when you have a pending criminal charge, it's possible to go ahead and get it handled quickly. Perhaps it would be easier if I just talked about it with an example. Let's say I've seen individuals who have deferred action, but they got charged with a, perhaps a misdemeanor possession of marijuana charge. No, they should not have been involved in anything that would cause them to be charged with that, but somehow they've been charged with a crime. Oftentimes we will get a something called an informal deferred prosecution agreement, or some type of agreement with the court where it gets continued for 12 months and the individual has to do probation for, his own probation for 12 months and does community service, goes to some classes for, substance abuse, and then at the end of the 12 months they go back to court and those charges are dismissed. Sometimes, and I can speak for New Hanover County and other counties nearby, but sometimes we're able to go ahead in these types of cases, go ahead and add that case onto the calendar earlier than those 12 months and go ahead and get the state to take a dismissal, which would be extremely helpful if you were someone with DACA and you were thinking about renewing. For people that do not have any legal status, or perhaps have family members who are not currently possessing any type of legal status to be here in the United States, that have a criminal history, it is important to prepare and to make sure you have all the information and to know exactly what your record says. We don't know exactly. Donald Trump has said a lot of different things. We don't know exactly what he's going to do, but in my opinion, it does look like he wants to start with deporting people that have criminal records. What types of criminal records, we're not entirely sure. My understanding is that he will be speaking on 60 Minutes tonight at 7 o'clock. So I would encourage everyone to tune in to 60 Minutes and see what the President-elect has to say.
David, a member of the audience has just brought me something quite on point to what you were saying. It's this beautiful headline. Trump says he'll immediately deport or imprison up to 3 million undocumented immigrants. And that's going to air tonight, talking about launching mass deportation. He says what we're going to do is get the people that are criminal and have criminal records, gang members, drug dealers, where a lot of these people, probably 2 million, it could even be 3 million, we're getting them out of our country or we're going to incarcerate. But we're getting them out of our country, they're here illegally. And then in saying that 2 to 3 million undocumented immigrants with criminal records live in the U.S., Trump was repeating a claim he'd made earlier in the campaign that the Washington Post fact-checked and determined was inaccurate. The Migration Policy Institute, a nonpartisan think tank, estimates that around 820,000 undocumented immigrants have criminal records, a figure that includes many people whose only conviction is just crossing the border illegally. So definitely we're all going to want to watch that tonight, but then we're going to remember what Dave and Sarah and Bradley and I have been telling you, which is he is not just going to be able to do anything against 2 to 3 million people overnight in this country, and there are constitutional protections and other types of legal protections that are in place for everybody in this country, including people who are undocumented. So.
Yeah, and just because you have a criminal record does not mean that you will be deported, and it doesn't mean that you're not eligible for certain defenses against deportation. So I would encourage anyone that has a criminal record or knows someone that does to speak with an immigration attorney to develop, to assess your record, assess what level of risk there actually is, and to formulate a plan of defense. There's some things we could go ahead and start doing that some of the other attorneys have talked about, as far as getting necessary documents together, proven physical presence in the United States for a certain amount of time, ties to the U.S., showing that you have U.S. citizen children and things like that, that will help in your defense. In less with some exceptions, anyone that is apprehended and detained still has a right to defend themselves from deportation. Now, if you've already had a prior order of removal, then you may not be entitled to a formal hearing in front of an immigration judge. But by and large, everyone is entitled to defend themselves. You do have a right to an attorney. In immigration proceedings, the government does not have to pay for your attorney, but you do have a right to obtain an attorney to defend you. There are some other things that people can do that are, basic common sense practices you can do to prepare for worst case scenarios. It may be worthwhile talking to an attorney to formulate a custody or guardianship plan for your children, and other types of things that you can do to protect your property and other things that you have here in the United States. And again, I'm not trying to cause a panic or to alarm anyone, but the more you prepare, the better you're going to feel if something it does happen. The more ready you'll be to defend yourself in the most appropriate way possible.
Do you want to open up into Q&A? Can I get just a time check?
15 till 3.
15 to 3, okay. So let me just say one thing and then let's open up into Q&A because I think there's going to be a lot of individual questions. Some of you have had consultations with immigration attorneys that lasted 30 minutes and DACA was the best option and that's what you got. Some of you haven't had consultations with an attorney. You might have done it through a different type of nonprofit, or you did your deferred action on your own. And some of you don't, of course, have DACA cases and you've got other types of cases that are pending. Now is the time to dig deep. They talk about leaning in. I need you guys to dig deep. You need to talk to your lawyer or find a lawyer, a good lawyer, not a notario, and talk for an hour or two. And that often means paying for an hour or two of the attorney's time. But that is about finding out not just what are the general things going on in my case, but is there anything else we can come up with to give me a plan B? I want to talk about a young man who came to our firm who had deferred action. He'd done it on his own. He did a great job. Everything was just fine. He was happy with his work permit. Well, come to find out, we started talking, and when he was a child and coming into the United States, it turns out that this person's parent was held for a month in a safe house by the same coyotes that smuggled them in. And that man was forced to go out and back every day and earn money to pay for the coyote's fee. And what happened while that was going on? Well, this young man and his mother were held in that safe house, and they were given buckets of bleach and told to clean, bathrooms, feces, garbage on the floor, just really disgusting things with no protective clothing. And this was not part of the deal. Part of the deal was they paid a coyote to come into the United States. But forced labor for a month while this man was extorted and forced to work, this changed smuggling into human trafficking. And so what do? We file a T visa, a human trafficking visa. There's no police report for what happened that long ago, but you're able to make a report of that type of trafficking today. And these T visa cases are something that's based in law. It's not just presidential power or deferred action. These T visa cases are things that somewhere around 10% of the people who we did a DACA or U visa case for have now been rescreened, and we're incorporating a T visa strategy into their case. So I'm talking about going back and digging deep and going through your entire history, either with your lawyer or finding a new attorney to go over it with, to make sure that nothing has been missed. Because there are people here who are really sad that they might be losing their DACA, but they're going to be really happy when they find out they have a better option that even has a path to a green card. So I always tell people, there is a silver lining. Sometimes there are bad things that happen, like, in my opinion, the new Trump administration is not a good thing. But of that, it's going to, once again, get us to focus on fixing our immigration status if it's possible, going and looking at new options, being creative, digging deep, being strong, and preparing. And at the end of the day, there are going to be people that will be deported by the Trump administration, just like with the Obama administration. but also there will be many people, I hope, who are not scared into finding immigration status, but are inspired to find immigration status. And that's what all of us are here for. And you have 10,000 other immigration attorneys in this country who are members of the American Immigration Association who are also glad to assist with these things. So I hope that today, once again, you're not going to be going away panicked. Don't watch TV tonight and be panicked. Instead, be prepared and start reaching out in your communities and doing anything that you can to help. And then in your packets, I do want to give a shout out to the American Immigration Council. Some of that information comes from them. If you like today's presentation, go online or use one of these forms, make a $50 donation and say thank you for the work that the American Immigration Council has done to protect immigrants and their families in this country. Every penny that you give is going to be going towards a good cause, which is litigating against bad immigration laws, litigating against unconstitutional laws, and promoting a positive culture of immigration in this country that we care about so very much. So now we're just going to open into Q&A. So who's got a question?
Can I just ask the attorneys to speak for just a minute? A lot of parents have kids in schools, and we've all heard about some of the instances that are going on in schools. Can I just ask you to speak for just a minute about the rights that the kids have in schools, that their parents' information cannot be given out, ICE cannot go into the schools and pick them up, although we know that there have been some instances.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I think that's a great one. I've been hearing just from friends and family in this past week, even first graders, either bullying, scaring other students. I've actually heard of an incident today of a teacher, I think it was 4th or 5th grade in Sampson County, making horrible statements to the students about their parents. And that's something that I've told people, if you can't speak up, if you want some help, I would be more than happy to even contact the principal, the teacher themselves, or write a letter. And it's just something that's a good point that everybody just needs to come together and take a stand on it. And to remind, whether it be as a local attorney or member of the community, to say that that is correct. Information should not be shared. They should not be in schools. The school should be a safe zone. And so from my point of view, I'm just encouraging people to speak out against it. And if they are fearful to do that, because a lot of these parents don't have status. They do not want to go into the schools and talk to teachers or principals about it because they're scared. And that's where I don't mind doing that. So, and I'll just kind of sum up real quick in Spanish. Entonces, la pregunta fue si, por ejemplo, hay un tipo de amenaza o algo en las escuelas de sus hijos. Si alguien está haciendo algo sobre los papás de estudiantes, cualquier bullying, amenazas, que es muy importante para hablar con el principal, la maestra, un líder en la escuela, y si alguien tiene miedo y no quiere hablar con alguien en la escuela, para como buscar a alguien que sí puede, por ejemplo, líderes en su comunidad, en su iglesia. Yo mismo, yo he escuchado algunas cosas esa semana y yo estoy hablando con esos papás, padres, si ustedes no quieren, yo puedo ayudar en cualquier comunicación, llamada, carta o una como visita con la escuela. Entonces, por favor, si hay un tipo de discriminación, amenazas en la escuela, contacta a alguien.
And then I'm going to ask David, so let's say someone goes up to a United States citizen child at school and they say, your dad is going to be deported, and you're going to be deported too because your dad is here illegally, and they're going to take away all the citizenship of all those kids born in America to illegal parents. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd say that's not true.
That's a great answer. It's not true. We're not taking away the citizenship of children who are born in the United States. That whole movement is something that would require major changes, not only in statutory law but constitutional law. The principle of jus soli, born on American soil, means that you are an American citizen, and I really do consider the claims that we are going to be taking away the citizenship of these children to be just absolutely crazy. It's just crazy talk. So, other questions?
We're talking on the Trump federal level. Should we expect any changes on the state or local level? I mean, what do you see any kind of trending?
You want to take that one? one? So we said, just repeat the question so we can get it on video.
All right, so the question is whether or not we can expect changes at the state level. Trump has said that he's going to cut off federal funding to sanctuary cities. So the cities that are refusing to cooperate so much with the federal government in terms of turning over undocumented immigrants that they may pick up on criminal charges. Trump is wanting to crack down on that. I don't think we'll see a big change at the state level because immigration law itself is a federal field. States don't really have authority to make any changes on immigration law. In North Carolina particularly, I think the supreme irony is that we elected Cooper as our governor and Trump as the person for our president for our electoral votes. Cooper is not anti-immigration. He was the Attorney General for 12 years or so, and he has been a proponent for not doing a lot of really harsh immigration stuff. If not a proponent, then at least that's not his platform. So I think in North Carolina specifically, we can expect the state to not be on board with a lot of the anti-immigration stuff that the federal government may do. But the states still don't have much say in what goes on, and the federal government will be the one that determines what happens, and the states will most likely have to follow because they're probably not wanting to get their funding cut off because the federal government gives a ton of money to the states.
And I would just add into that at a more local level in counties. Years ago, where we had more problems with the show me your papers and the ICE holds happening in jails, I know, me personally, I don't know how many cases I saw in Duplin County and Kenansville where the jail was outright discriminatory, mean, rude to me, to any person being held there. And so far as maybe if there was a new enforcement memo that would come about, it's already pretty strict now, but where you're going to see that mixing is if there's an enforcement memo and say local jails, they have the authority to hold an immigrant until ICE tells them what to do, then they come. That's where we could see something like that. Hopefully it won't be quite as horrible as I've seen in the past 7 years, and it's not been that bad over the past few years. But you just have to have an eye on that and to know your rights. And sometimes if a local jail wants to hold somebody, and let's say their case is done and they should be released, they're going to say, oh, well, we didn't get notice from the court. We didn't get notice that this was resolved. That's where an attorney needs to go in and make sure they have notice that a case is over, that person should be released from jail. If that kind of, we hope it's not going to get really, horrible looking, but it's something that has been happening. And if enforcement goes full force even more, we could see that happening again.
And Sarah, you've got a great point. Just because some authority is telling you something does not mean that is the law. This is the time to question authority, or better yet, have your lawyer question it for you. Other questions? Okay.
With DACA, if they haven't applied for DACA yet, should you recommend they go ahead and apply for it if they qualify or not, because it might hurt?
That's a great question. So if you don't have DACA now, but you were about to apply, you were thinking you were going to apply for DACA for the first time, maybe you finally got the last pieces of evidence ready for your lawyer to do it, or maybe you're coming on age 15 and you're finally eligible to do it, do you go ahead and file now when it's going to take 5 or 6 months for a decision to be made, during which time the president does have the authority to end the program? In general, just in general, I am not telling people who have not filed for DACA to go ahead and do it right now. It does worry me that they're going to spend a lot of time and money and they're not on the radar right now, so maybe now isn't a great time to come out of the shadows. But I have 2 cases that I can give great examples on that we are going to be filing. It's a first-time DACA filing. One of the kids already has an approved I-360 special juvenile immigration petition. One of the parents was abandoning and neglectful, and so this child is already on the path to a green card. We're going to go ahead and file for DACA for this child as well, so that in the meantime, this kid, while waiting in line to do the permanent residency process, will have at least a shot at also having a work permit through the DREAMER program. So that's somebody where They're already on immigration's radar because we've already filed some immigration papers. They've got a nice path to a green card happening, but I'm going to try to patch in the DACA case, which was already pretty much ready to file anyway, in the hopes that they will get that work permit as an identity document and a social security number while everything else is in process. And then we have some other cases where we have a dual strategy, like a human trafficking case. We're going to go ahead and do DACA for that person as well. If we're going to file one type of case, why not do the other and have, sometimes two cases really is better than one. Some people who have deportation orders, who really have nothing else to lose, they're already in the system, or they're defending themselves in front of an immigration judge. Filing a new first-time DACA is going to actually be one of their best defenses. And I hear judges and sometimes opposing counsel talk about how you lawyers are always trying to drag everything out, and that's not ethical. Well, I don't ever just drag stuff out to drag stuff out, but I do file continuances and I do file applications that sometimes are a long shot, but are ethical cases. And yeah, I'm going to take every right to file that case and to appeal it and litigate it and work on it as long as we possibly can, because my client does have options in this country and I want to pursue them to the greatest extent possible. And so I do hope that, and I've got some smiling faces in the audience today. I have Gentle and Lucy here who are paralegals at our firm, and some of you may have worked with them in the past, and they are here today giving up their time on a Sunday because they care too. It's not just us for lawyers. We've got, again, there's 10,000 lawyers in this country who want to fight for the rights of these immigrants in the United States. So I say sometimes, yes, you want to go ahead and file DACA if you haven't before, but that's a strategic question that you've got to plan out with a very good immigration attorney before you just throw papers into the system.
From our live audience, could you please give us a link to the place where you have the information and where people can make a donation?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so www.americanimmigrationcouncil, that's all one word, .org/donate. www.americanimmigrationcouncil.org/donate. The American Immigration Council does a lot of really cool things, including the 5th grade essay contest about why it's great to be an American and how America is a country based on immigration. And they also are the agency that does these many different wonderful lawsuits in protection of immigrant rights. You're going to see lots of great things coming from them. And ladies who's already married but cute, Ben Johnson, check him out on AILA.org. Ben Johnson, one of the executive directors, he does a great 4-minute quick take. There's a video that's on my website at Helen Tarkich Law, or you could just go to the American Immigration website, the AILA website or American Immigration Council's website, and have access to that video that also talks about his impressions in the post-election era.
Hey, I got a follow-up question for the panel. How would you guys advise someone who currently has DACA, but their work permit it's set to expire in, say, like September of 2017? Do they just need to wait and see what happens, or can they try to go ahead and renew it now, even though it's so far in advance? Or what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, I've learned something new from the FAQ at USCIS. Now, they've been telling us to file DACA renewals 5 months before the expiration because it's going to take the full 5 months to go through the renewal process. But I was talking to another attorney who pointed this out to me, that you can actually file, 7 or 8 months in advance. Maybe filing a year in advance is a little, you just got your DACA. It's a little early to go ahead and start the renewal process, but I would file those renewals as early as you possibly could. And then also I would take that as an opportunity. I hope that, I'm sending out emails, but I hope that every single one of my clients with DACA is going to come in for a deep session to see if there's anything else we can do to add on a second type of strategy to their case. And when you're at the renewal stage, that's a great time to do it, but if not, do it before.
Yep, and I agree. I've had some renewals come in that about 6 months, in advance, and I'm going to go ahead and get them out. So, and I've heard similar people saying that. Also recently, before the election, I heard that USCIS is about 3 months behind in even processing the actual cards. So besides, everything else going on, there is a delay in getting these cards. And I've had a couple clients who've been approved for over a month with no card coming, and it's just delayed. It's coming, but really monitor that. And I'm just going to open up in Spanish if people have any questions. If they
Oh, yeah, y si quieren hacer una pregunta en español. preguntas en español?
Pregunta sobre las cuentas bancarias. Si tienes una cuenta bancaria, ¿cómo puedes proteger tu dinero en caso de deportación?
Ok, es buena pregunta sobre cuentas del banco. Si alguien tiene una cuenta, por ejemplo, yo sé que el banco BB&T acepta matrículas para abrir una cuenta. Entonces, esas personas muchas veces no tienen estatus legal. Entonces, en un caso de deportación, si alguien quiere proteger sus propiedades, dinero, cuentas, puede hacer un carta de poder a veces, a power of attorney, hablar con un abogado para revisar qué tipo de cuentas, propiedad, dinero que tiene y hacer un plan juntos, que por ejemplo quiere que su hermano tiene control de todo, es un carta de poder, más o menos. So I'm basically saying that if somebody wants to protect or how to protect bank accounts or anything more property, money, anything that's more of a legal process, how to plan for that. A power of attorney could take care of that. If you say, hey, I want my brother who has status, who's a resident or a citizen, to be able to take control over these areas if something were to happen, talk to an attorney, go over what your needs are. Sometimes a power of attorney can handle that. So that's my opinion.
Okay, ¿cuáles son las expectativas o las esperanzas para aquellas personas que ya están en proceso de obtener documentos?
Bueno, esto, hay alguna información aquí sobre esto también y quiero revisarlo. La pregunta es, para gente que ya está en trámite, ¿cuál es la expectativa? Pero estamos hablando no para DACA, pero otra forma de caso, quizás. Ok. Para gente que estaba haciendo un I-601A, Provisional Waiver, este caso está basado en una regla que tomó mucho tiempo para pasar y va a tomar mucho tiempo para revocar. Para nuestros clientes que están haciendo este proceso de la perdón, estamos por supuesto revisando los casos nuevamente con los clientes, pero estamos muy agresivamente siguiendo con esta forma de caso para la residencia permanente. So if you're doing an I-601A provisional waiver, my firm right now, we are going to push through aggressively on those cases. It took a long time to get that regulation in place, darn it, and I'm going to let them take a long time trying to get rid of it. And in the meantime, I'm going to process every single one of those cases that I possibly can. Lo mismo con las visas U y la visa T. Esto es una ley. Esto es un sendero a la residencia permanente. Si tienen un caso de visa U, es tiempo para ver cuál es el estado del caso, si ya está pendiente, pero básicamente seguimos trabajando en estos casos y tratando de obtener un resultado. So if you've got a T or a U visa, I say go for it aggressively. There's no reason to try to, withdrawing a case is not going to get you any less off the radar, and it's just taking away your opportunity. Retirando un caso que está pendiente, en la mayoría de los casos no le va a ayudar a nada, simplemente va a llegar a un resultado negativo. I also want to talk about, let's say we file a DACA renewal and they not only deny it, but they attach a notice to appear for deportation. The government has a right to do that. If they're canceling the program, when they deny that DACA, they could attach a notice to appear to an immigration judge for an immigration hearing in the deportation courts. That's not always the bad thing. Some of these people with DACA have kids who are sick, or they have other relatives, like a permanent resident spouse or parent, who would qualify them for what's called cancellation of deportation. So although it wouldn't be fun to be put in front of a deportation judge, sometimes actually having that process be initiated is going to give them new rights to different types of work permits and even possibly permanent residency. Para alguna gente, si ellos eventualmente cancelan el programa de acción diferida de estudiantes, es posible que entonces ellos adjunten una noticia para presentarse a una corte en frente de una inmigración, a un juez de inmigración en la corte de deportación. Y eso suena muy mal, ¿no? Están denegando mi DACA y ahora tengo que ir a una corte de deportación. Pero de hecho, en muchos casos la gente tiene niños enfermos, o una esposa que es residente permanente o estadounidense, o padres así, y entonces esa gente tiene derecho a intentar a cancelación de remoción ante el juez de inmigración. Incluso gente que tiene una orden de deportación, si tienen miedo de regresar a su país, ellos pueden luchar ahora para parar esa remoción. Así que aunque en algunos casos si ellos cancelan el programa de acción diferida podrían iniciar una remoción, pero de hecho no es tan mal si esto pasa, porque quizás le va a abrir otros derechos a un permiso de trabajo, a una residencia permanente u otra forma de permanecer en este país y seguir con un documento de identidad. Other types of cases that might be pending that we want people to consider continuing to pursue.
I mean, just the basics of if somebody's applying for citizenship, you know.
That's
for a
right.
green
Oh
card.
my gosh.
I
Yes.
mean,
Citizenship.
yeah.
Keep your citizenship cases going. And if you know people who are permanent residents who have not applied for American citizenship and they are now regretting that they have not done so because their vote would have mattered, boy, I'd just love to see them getting their citizenship done this year because we're coming up on elections next year and the year after that are going to make a difference in this country as well.
Cualquier persona con un caso de ciudadanía para, por ejemplo, ahora con su residencia, que puede calificar para su ciudadanía, es momento para hacerlo. Yo conozco 2 familias ahora que están empujando a aplicar ahora, pero más o menos todo el resto de tipos de casos aparte de DACA sigue igual. Si hay un caso pendiente, sigue pendiente. Y es todo.
More questions or questions from the live audience?
¿Otras preguntas?
Okay, let's take one more.
Do a reminder, o que voy a recordar nuevamente, hay varias personas que tenían DACA y dejó que se venciera por temor de que ya iba a haber DACA y no lo renovaron. So, esto pueden todavía renovar su permiso de DACA que tienen sin ninguna consecuencia. Pero por eso, pero si han metido consecuencias criminales, es mejor que con un abogado para saber sus derechos. So, un recordatorio, or just a reminder, if you haven't renewed your DACA and it's expired and you thought that DACA no longer exists, it still exists, so you should go ahead and